Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel Dhyani classes. If you are watching my video for the first time, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So in today's video, we will cover the first part of the chapter, The Thief's Story, written by Ruskin Bond from class 10th CBSE. So let's get started. Let's talk about the author. The Thief's Story is written by Ruskin Bond. He was born on 19th May 1934. At the age of 10, after his father's death, he started living with his grandparents in Dehradun, Uttarakhand. Ruskin Bond is a famous Indian writer and wrote several novels and books such as The Blue Umbrella and The Room on the Roof, Cherry Tree, and so on. The Thief's Story is one of his well-known stories. So this is a very beautiful story written by Ruskin Bond, and this story talks about a young 15 years old thief who used to change his name every month to stay away from police and his ex-employers and cheated an innocent 25 years old person named Anil. So let's begin with the line by line explanation of the chapter in English. I was still a thief when I met Anil. So here the narrator is talking about himself, that I was a thief when he met a person named Anil, and during the time he used to cheat innocent people and steal their money, and says, and though only 15, I was an experienced and fairly successful hand. That means the narrator was 15 years old at that time when he met Anil, and he was an experienced and fairly successful hand. That means whatever theft he was involved in, he was able to cheat or steal things very easily, and he had an expert hand on stealing things. Further he says, Anil was watching a wrestling match when I approached him. So when the narrator met Anil, at that time Anil was watching a wrestling match. That means when this thief, who was 15 years old, he was looking at Anil and then he approached him. That means he wanted to talk to Anil. He was about 25, a tall, lean fellow. So here the narrator is talking about Anil, that Anil was about 25 years old at that time and he was a tall and lean fellow. That means he was very tall and thin guy and he looked very easygoing. That means Anil was looking very jolly good fellow and he was not looking very strict, and says, kind or simple enough for my purpose. So this young thief thought this fellow is very young and he is looking very innocent and simple guy, and thought Anil would be the right person for his purpose. That means Anil was the right person to cheat. I hadn't had much luck of late and thought I might be able to get into the young man's confidence. So here the narrator is saying that I hadn't had much luck of late. That means he did not steal anyone and he did not get any money from anyone, and he thought I might be able to get into the young man's confidence. That means he would be able to be friend of Anil and make him believe that he was a good friend of Anil so that he can plan accordingly in order to cheat him. Further the narrator is saying, you look a bit of a wrestler yourself, I said. So here the narrator started a conversation with Anil that you look a bit of wrestler yourself. That means he commented on Anil that he looks like a wrestler, and says, a little flattery helps in making friends. That means by saying this he started making or praising Anil that you are looking like a wrestler. So flattery means praising or giving compliments, and says, so do you? He replied, which put me off for a moment because at that time I was rather thin. So in reply, Anil also replied this 15 years old thief that, so do you? That means you are also looking like a wrestler, and says, which put me off. That means he never expects such a reply from Anil because at that time I was also rather thin. That means this boy was also looking very thin. Well, I said modestly, I do wrestle a bit. So the thief also replied Anil in a very modestly, that means in a humble way or in a polite way, that I do wrestle a bit. That means sometimes I do wrestling. And then Anil asked him, what's your name? Hari Singh, I lied. That means Anil wanted to know his name and he asked him, what is your name? And then this boy, who was a thief, he lied Anil that my name is Hari. I took a new name every month. That means this boy, who was 15 years old thief, keeps changing his name every single month. And why he used to change his name? Because that kept me ahead of the police and my former employers. That means he used to change his name every month in order to escape from police and people who gave him work to do, because he used to cheat them, and if they wanted to catch hold of him they would ask his name. So if he keeps changing his name, then it will not be easy for them to catch or recognize him. So that's why every month he would change his name. So what do you mean by employers? That means a person or a company that has people who do work for a salary. Further he says, after this introduction, Anil talked about the well-oiled wrestlers who were grunting, lifting and throwing each other about. So here both Hari and Anil started talking to each other, and after a general conversation, Anil talked about the well-oiled wrestlers. That means they started talking about how the wrestlers were doing and how their strong oiled bodies are looking and how they are grounding. That means they are making a very low and short sound and lifting and throwing each other about. That means they were trying to stretch their bodies, or they were trying to stretch their strong body to win the contest, and throwing each other in order to make proper space for performance. I didn't have much to say. That means the narrator did not have much to say because he did not know much about the wrestling. And then Anil walked away. I followed casually. So after the conversation, Anil started walking away from there, and then I followed casually. That means Hari started following him casually. So what do you mean by casually? That means in a relaxed way or informal way. Hello again, he said. So here, as Hari started approaching Anil and Hari wanted to speak to Anil, so Hari followed him casually, and again Hari said hello. And when Anil turned back, and then I gave him my most appealing smile. That means Hari started giving him appealing smile. That means Hari started giving him very sweet smile and said, I want to work for you, I said. That means a thief said, Anil, that I would like to work for you. And then Anil replied, but I can't pay you. That means Anil said to Hari that I have no money to pay you. And I thought that over for a minute. And then Hari started thinking something for a while. And what he was thinking? Perhaps I had misjudged my man. That means Hari thought that maybe Anil is not the right fellow to choose. So misjudged means incorrect opinion or conclusion of something. And then Hari says, I asked, can you feed me? So Hari asked him, will you be able to give me food? So then immediately Anil asked him, can you cook? I can cook, I lied again. So when Hari asked him, can you feed me? Then immediately Anil asked him, can you cook? That means, are you able to cook food? And then I can cook, I lied again. That means again Hari told a lie to Anil that he will be able to cook food and he knows how to cook food. Further he says, if you can cook, then maybe I can feed you. So here when Hari lied again that he can cook food, immediately Anil told him that if he can cook food, then maybe I can feed you. That means if Hari is able to cook food, then only Anil would be able to help him in providing food and shelter at his home. He took me to his room over the Jamuna sweet shop and told me I could sleep on the balcony. So finally Anil agreed upon what Hari said and thought that Hari would be able to cook food for him. And then he took Hari to his house, and there was a room over the Jamuna sweet shop, and told him that he can sleep on the balcony. But the meal I cooked that night must have been terrible because Anil gave it to a stray dog and told me to be off. So here the author is saying that Hari started cooking food and he said the meal I cooked that night must have been terrible. That means whatever Hari cooked for Anil, it was awful and tasteless because Hari did not know how to cook food, and then Anil gave it to a stray dog. That means Anil was not able to eat that food, and he gave entire food to the street dog and then told him to be off. That means Anil told him to go away from his home. But I just hung around smiling in my most appealing way, and he couldn't help laughing. So as Anil said to Hari to go away from his house, but Hari decided to stay there for a while, and he was passing his most appealing smile. That means he was passing his sweet smiling in the hope that Anil would also smile. But he couldn't help laughing. That means Anil did not laugh at all because Anil took him at his home in thinking that he would be able to cook food for him. But food was cooked by Hari was so terrible and tasteless, and then Anil got to know that he was not able to cook food at all and asked him to leave his home. So hung around means go around or wait around for someone or something. Later he patted me on the head and said never mind, he would teach me to cook. So later on Anil understood that this fellow wanted to stay with him as he was passing smiling in his most appealing way, and felt sorry for him. And then Anil changed his mind and patted me on the head. That means Anil patted on Hari's head and said never mind, he would teach me to cook. That means Anil said come on and I will teach you how to cook food, and allow him to stay with him. He also taught me to write my name and said he would soon teach me to write whole sentences and to add numbers. So here Anil also told him that he also taught him to write my name. That means Anil also told him that I will teach you how to write your name, and also assured him to teach him how to write complete sentences and how to add the numbers. That means Anil was ready to teach him English grammar and some calculation in maths as well. And then I was grateful. That means Hari felt very happy to hear that and thankful to Anil. I knew that once I could write like an educated man, there would be no limit to what I could achieve. So here Hari thought he will be very successful and educated thief, and says once I could write like an educated man. That means once he will be able to learn and write like an educated man, he would be able to cheat educated people as well, and thought there would be no limit to what I would achieve. That means once he will start writing and reading, then there would be no limit what he can achieve. So maybe he will also work somewhere like an educated man and earn money. It was quite pleasant working for Anil. So he became quite pleasant. That means he felt very happy working for Anil. I made the tea in the morning and then would take my time buying the day's supplies, usually making a profit of about a rupee a day. So here Hari used to make tea for Anil in the morning and then would take my time buying the day's supplies. That means Hari would go to the market and buy day's supplies. That means food or vegetable and other household things. And then after buying these supplies, he would save about 1 rupee in his pocket every day from the money that Anil used to give him for the daily groceries. I think he knew I made a little money this way, but he did not seem to mind. So here the author is saying that I think he knew I made a little money. That means Anil already got to know that Hari is taking 1 rupee every day, and says but he did not seem to mind. That means Anil did not care about that. Anil made money by fits and starts. So Anil used to earn money by fits and starts. So what do you mean by fits and starts? That means irregularly or not in a consistent way. That means the source of income was not permanent. He would borrow 1 week, lend the next. So as we know that Anil did not have a regular income and used to earn money in a different ways because he did not have a fixed job, and would borrow 1 week and lend the next. That means for 1 week he would take money from his friend, and then the next week he would be able to return money to somebody. He kept worrying about his next check, but as soon as it arrived he would go out and celebrate. So here the narrator is saying that Anil used to be worried about his dues or EMIs all the time because he did not have a fixed income, and says but as soon as it arrived he would go out and celebrate. That means whenever he gets money, immediately he would pay all the dues and go out and celebrate with his friends. Further he says it seems he wrote for magazines, a queer way to make a living. So here the narrator is saying that Anil was a writer and he used to write for magazine, and says it was a queer way to make a living. That means Anil used to earn money in a very different and strange way because he did not have fixed source of income and he did not have a permanent work to do. So queer way means a very strange and curious way. One evening he came home with a small bundle of notes saying he had just sold a book to a publisher. So one day Hari got surprised to see Anil that Anil came back home with a small bundle of notes. That means he earned a lot of money, and said he had just sold a book to a publisher. That means Anil told Hari that he had sold a book to a publisher. At night I saw him tuck the money under the mattress. So that night Hari was planning something and he kept looking at money, and then he got to know that before going to bed Anil kept all money under the mattress where he used to sleep. I had been working for Anil for almost a month, and apart from cheating on the shopping, had not done anything in my line of work. So here this young boy Hari thought that he had been living with Anil almost for a month, and says apart from this cheating on shopping, that means Hari used to cheat him every day by taking 1 rupee on his pocket while shopping, and says had not done anything in my line of work. That means he didn't do any kind of stealing other than taking away 1 rupee every single day. I had every opportunity for doing so. That means Anil used to give him a key to the door, and it was great opportunity for Hari to steal things from his house, and he could escape whenever he wished, or he could have stolen or cheated him anytime. He was the most trusting person I had ever met. So here Hari is saying that Anil was the most trusting person I had ever met. That means Anil was the very first person he ever met, because Anil was trusted upon Hari the most and used to give him a key to the door, and that's why Hari is saying that Anil was the most trusting person I had ever met, and says, and that's why it was so difficult to rob him. That means because Anil was the most trusting person, so Hari did not want to cheat or break his trust, and that's why it was very difficult for Hari to cheat or rob Anil. It's easy to rob a greedy man because he can afford to be robbed. So according to this thief named Hari, that it is easy to rob greedy man, that means a person who has lot of money and who does not spend the money because he can afford to be robbed. That means this greedy man keeps all his money at one place, and it is easy to find out hidden money to steal, and says, but it's difficult to rob a careless man. So here he is saying that it is not easy to rob a careless man like Anil, because he didn't care about the money and completely trusting Hari by giving money and door key to him. And further he says sometimes he doesn't even notice he's been robbed, and that's take all the pleasure out of the work. So Hari is saying that it is very difficult to rob a person such as Anil, and even sometimes he doesn't even notice that even Anil sometimes don't know that he has been robbed by Hari, and says that takes all the pleasure out of the work. That means Hari would not be happy stealing money from a careless man like Anil. So pleasure means happiness or thrill. So this is the end of the first part of the chapter, Thieves Story. Let's look at the second part of the chapter in my next video. For more informative videos, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So thank you so much for watching once again. Stay safe, stay healthy.